said it before, and I'll say it again. I keep meeting the best people I know through aviation. Hey, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome. It's good to meet you. If you're a returning visitor, you know that I'm building a Sonex B in my garage, and you probably also know that over the last couple of years I've been considering using an aero momentum engine on my airplane. Well, that may have changed. While here attending Sun and Fun, this isn't my normal background, but I had the opportunity to sit in and listen to a forum from a guy named Denny Rowe. For those of you who follow some of the STOL stuff going on, he won his class in the 2024 Appalachian Mountain STOL competition. He flies a Just Aircraft Highlander, and he has a Yamaha Apex snowmobile engine that he runs on his Highlander named HeeHaw. Denny was doing a forum here at Sun and Fun, and I sat in on it, just kind of interested to see what kinds of other engine options there were out there. And I may have been convinced that the Yamaha might be a better option for my airplane than the Aero Momentum, partially because of weight, because of power, because of cost. There's a lot of good reasons for this engine. During his presentation, Denny had suggested that each of us join a Facebook group specifically dedicated to these engines, which I did. And while I was there, I noticed that there's a gentleman who was from Australia who had asked if it was possible to get a recording of one of Denny's presentations. And I had a little bit of time on my hands the next day, and I said, hey, I've got my camera gear here, I'd be happy to record it. So that's what this video is. It's a recording of Denny's presentation at Sun and Fun, where he talks about his experience with the Yamaha Apex engine. I should also mention that the second half of it, which is where we went out and looked at the airplane, the wind was blowing a little bit and my microphone didn't do a very good job of cleaning that up. So there's a lot of it that you can't really hear very well, but I thought it was worth putting in there because you can hear a bit and you get to look at cool looking airplanes and engines. So there you go.
I've kind of become a guy that people call to answer questions if they're converting their airplane over to a Yamaha engine. My specialty is the Apex right now, but I am currently helping a friend build a Badlands Traveler. We're putting on the turbocharged version of the 3-cylinder, so I'm learning that engine as we go with that project and that. So a little bit about the Yamaha engine. These engines, the 4-cylinder that I fly came out of the Yamaha Apex 1000cc sleds from 2006 to 2018. They're 4-cylinder engines. Yamaha never turbocharged them. Everybody that turbocharges the 4-cylinder is doing aftermarket stuff, and that's stuff that the sled guys have been doing since even before the Apex. The Apex was pre-run by the RX1 engine. It's a 4-cylinder carbureted version. Everything that few people have put RX1s in airplanes, and they've had pretty good results, but it's a little trickier because you have to reject the carburetors and you're balancing carburetors. With the fuel injected Apex, the Nytro, and the Sidewinders, the computer kind of does all the tuning and stuff. I run the Snowmobile ECU and the voltage regulator and all the electronics from the sled with a modified wiring harness. A BD Turnkey out in Reno, Nevada. They build AEM and one other brand ECUs for them, and they have a tuning package and a really cool dash thing to give you prop RPM, percent power you're using, max available power. They're the bling guys. If you want your Yamaha to have the bling factor and a really nice engine monitor, they're the way to go. If you want to be cheap like me, you can run an Apex on the stock electronics, no problem. You don't tune it. The Apex is the 4-cylinder, normally aspirated engine. And again, some people have turbocharged them, but you're going to go through an aftermarket company to do that. Most people recommend if you're going to go to 200 horse and up route, it's easier to go with the Sidewinder, which is this engine in the turbocharged version, 3-cylinder, because Yamaha built it that way from the start. And you'll need the plenum, the intercooler, and all this stuff. It's all available from suppliers and that. But these engines are kind of a rule your own kind of thing. You're going to source your own engine mount. You're going to source your own surge tank for the cooling system, radiator, and that. But I highly recommend, if you're on Facebook, if you're not, join Facebook, and and join the Yamaha Aircraft Conversion Group on there, because it's a wealth, it's years of information of guys like me that have put posts up, and there's documentation in there and files that you can learn a whole lot. They've got 3D printed bolt-on thing that you can bolt on to an Apex engine or maybe a Nytro and a Sidewinder. It will tell you where your propeller flange is going to be, so you can design your motor mount to locate your engine right. There's stuff like that's invaluable, and it's a very friendly group, and any questions you have can be answered there. And I highly recommend you go through the files and the old posts, and most of your questions will be answered somewhere on there. If you can't find it, then ask, and one of us old guys will try to help you along. No, it's just a 4-stroke engine. I'm speaking to the Apex here, and they're all dual overhead cam, and fuel injected again. If you're past the RX1, which you should be. The Apex is 5 valves per cylinder. I believe there's 3 intake valves and 2 exhaust valves per cylinder. So it's a 20 valve engine on the 4-cylinder. I assume these are also 5 valve engines, so they're going to be 18 valve and 15 valve engines. They're liquid cooled. Now the Apex max horsepower is at 10,000 RPM. The only time I run that flatter pitch in my prop is when I'm competing in STOL competitions. Typically I run at 17 degrees in my prop, and I run when normal flying and 14 when I compete. And that allows it to rev up and use power, but you're stuck in first gear at that point. You're playing months ago, maybe 65 mile an hour all out, and you'll over rev the engine too at higher speeds. When I normally operate, I'm taking off about 8,500 RPMs, maybe 86, and then it'll rev out into the 9s in level flight, and it'll pull a Highlander up with that prop for that much pitch. It'll pull my Highlander up over 120 mile an hour, no problem. When it's cleaned up with covered gear and everything, it'll go over to B&E in level flight.
What's the name of your plane?
Mine's the Highlander, Just Aircraft Highlander. And now it's important to think these engines, especially the Apex, they're a 900 series road tax replacement. People want to come on the group all the time. They want to replace my 0360 or my popped up 0320 with a lighter engine, and it's not. This is a replacement for the 912 through the 916. Cruising on my Apex, I'm only asking about 80 or 90 horse at the most out of it, going 92 mile an hour. So that motor's just low for long, 60% power maybe.
How many RPMs are you cruising?
I cruise at 75 to 7,600. A lot of guys cruise 8,000 to 8,600. That's burning 6 to 7 gallons an hour. If I go 100 mile an hour in that plane, it'll burn 5.5 gallons an hour. I go 92 and it burns 4.8 gallons an hour. Coming down here, we had headwinds most of the way. I pushed a little extra in, so I burned exactly 5 gallons an hour the whole way here.
That's nice.
And we were probably at 95 mile an hour probably.
What is the gear ratio?
On the Apex, it's a fixed ratio. There's only one ratio available on the 4-cylinder gearbox. It's 3.83 to 1 at the prop. And actually, the Apex actually has an internal gear reduction in the engine and a rubber damper in the engine already, which really makes it nice. It's really ideally suited to this application. So you got 3.83. That gets you way down in cruising. I'm like 1,900 RPM on my prop. And so you want a big blade on it. They're more suited for the high ground clearance, big prop guys like me.
Well, I imagine you're saying 8,500 RPM. Prop RPM?
No, when I talk those big numbers, that's engine RPM. That's why this is here. If you run this prop at 8, you'd need a prop about this size at 8,500 RPM. Okay, and it wouldn't do much. It wouldn't do much.
So now the gear reduction on this, I'm sorry.
Now the gear reduction on this 3-cylinder engine, his gearbox, or this is called the Nytro gearbox, because after the Nytro engine, the Sidewinder is the same exact. It fits the same. The turbocharged version is the Sidewinder, and the same gearbox fits both engines. Now this engine has compound gearing, and this gearbox has compound gearing. HeeHaw offers 4 different ratios, from 4 to 1 down to, there's a 3.5 to 1, and then there's even faster ones at the prop. So a guy with a Sonex or maybe an RV9 is a pretty good platform for this engine. That's a fastest, heaviest plane I would recommend this in. We're putting one in an Avalanche Traveler, which is a much bigger airplane than the Highlander. But they do offer, you could get 120 horse continuous with the turbocharger on them. And again, they're stock turboed, and the sled are 200 horse max. And most of us are going to have a dual map, dual boost setting on it. We flip the switch, and we're going to ask 250 when we compete with it. So we're going to have operated at 200 max and be able to flip to 250 for competition. You can go much higher. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I want my motors to last. I'm trying to be that guy that's accumulating hours and proving that the TBO on this may be 1,000 hours. And at 600, well, this engine actually, I've run 2 different engines because I overheated one due to improper plumbing when I first started out. So this engine has something over 400. I'm coming up on 500, but total 600 hours in Apex powered Highlander, you know. But
when you rebuild that, are you going to rebuild that with Yamaha parts?
Oh, absolutely. OEM parts. Yes, all stock. I do have a race engine that I tried a couple years ago, and I had a company bore it 2 millimeter over, and I used Yamaha Watercraft. It's a common snowmobile mod for an Apex. Yamaha Watercraft pistons, exact same platform, 2 millimeters bigger. So it turns a 1,000cc engine into a 1,050cc. It's only 50 more cc, 5% more displacement, but noticeable more power. I could tell you, same prop setting, it turned me up about 600 more RPM at takeoff. And it was, through that reduction, you wouldn't think it was much because it's just a small improvement, like 100, 120 RPM, but man, they're already powerful. And it was awesome, but I don't know if I broke it in too hard. I don't know if the Nikasil was improperly done, but it slowed. Well, I shouldn't say slowed. It rapidly ate the Nikasil from the cylinders, started burning oil from day one. And I found out at Sodbusters a couple years ago in Wisconsin that when my low oil light came on, that I was low on oil, and I found out it was burning about 1.5 quarts every 3 hours. And with a gallon and a quart of oil, I limped home to Pittsburgh with it, and it still ran great. But when we tore it apart, we found the Nikasil was coming off the cylinder. So
What's oil capacity?
oil capacity is the Apex is 4 quarts. Well, I believe it may be the same one as. Oil change interval on the engine and the gearbox is 25 hours. The most you want to push it is 30 hours. They're low capacity oil volume, and the gears in there are doing a lot. You know what's going on in there to slow that down to prop speed. So you don't, when you're breaking in your gearbox, your magnetic plug will get a lot of residue on it, and each oil change you'll see less. And so when 25 hours is typical, 30 at the max, and you'll clean this plug. This is your oil drain plug, and it'll have fine metal dust on it. And it's kind of nice because if you whatever chunk of gear, it would also come out with this, and that's not a problem. But if it's nice having a magnetic drain plug.
What oil weight are you using?
In the gearbox or the engine? Okay. In the engine right now, I'm running 550 full synthetic Schaefer Supreme 9000. It's a high zinc racing oil. Any good 4-stroke motorsports synthetic oil, you could run Mobil 1 synthetic. 530 is good. I've run 1030 in them. Early on, I'd run some Wolfstead motor oil, but I found the lab work on it always came back and said the viscosity was thinner than the claimed viscosity of the oil. So I know a lot of racing folks that swear by Schaefers, and the engine builder I use swears by Schaefers, and I just went through it, and my oil samples are good, and it's a boutique oil. It's like $12 a quart. You can run Mobil 1, it ain't that much less. It's like 10 or 11 bucks a quart.
Same price.
Yeah,
I'm using the 4T Racing Mobil 1.
Mobil 1 4T Racing. That's a good oil for them. It's about the same price.
I think it's 1040 though.
1040, yeah. Casey was saying 550 is good. Your oil's fine. That oil's fine. You're in the south. You're always warm, so you're fine there.
Where are you at?
I'm in western Pennsylvania. I'm northeast of Pittsburgh, about 30 miles. He said the 550 is a good year-round oil for this engine. In the gearbox, the Sprague gear, which is the clutch gear inside of this has no gears in it. That's why it's a demonstration gearbox. Teal, the manufacturer, recommends Deck 6 ATF fluid. Reason being, the Sprag gear in here came out of GM transmission that used Deck 6. And he said it's good enough for GM, it's good enough for us, okay? Now, my oil test got labbed, LNC Labs out in Arizona, I think it is. Larry is a home builder. He flies a Zenith with a Corvair engine. He has a very big interest in these engines, and he's very supportive of us using them there. When he does my oil test, he would tell me we can do better than that ATF fluid. And the wear metals are always going to be high because we're overworking the oil. But he says, let's try some stuff. So a number of us have tried 85, 90 gear oil in it, and it worked great, and the lab work was better. But at full power, you lost 300 to 400 RPM full power takeoff due to this. The ATF fluid is basically a 5-weight oil. It's almost like water, okay? The gear oil we were using was 30-weight oil. It's thicker going through the gears, so you have viscosity loss in the and squeezing that oil out of your gears as you're spinning, okay? So he says, let me do some homework, and I'm going to find you a differential oil that I think is going to work better than the ATF and still protect like the better results we got with the 30-weight. So he comes back after a week or so and he says, I want you to try Lucas L9. It's a racing differential oil. I think it was developed for Formula One cars. It's a 7.5-weight gear oil, so it's much thinner viscosity than the 30-weight gear oils equivalents, but it's almost as fine as the 5-weight ATF fluid. Sure enough, my power came back, and the protection was there. It was getting the better results in the ATF fluid, just like we had with the 30-weight oil.
That's what I'm running.
Yeah, and most guys are switching to it. And I can tell you, the time on that gearbox is up over 300 some hours, and I have not touched that gearbox since putting that oil in. I've never had a Sprag issue, even before the drag clutch modification I've tried to tell you guys about. That kind of helps protect that gear a little bit. Kind of got a little bit of a shock absorber in there for the Sprag. The only time the Sprag's engaging and disengaging is when you're below 3,000 RPM, taxiing or idling around, and you'll hear a little bit of a clickety-click out of the gearbox. And all that is your engine is at a low RPM, your prop isn't loaded enough to keep the Sprag locked up with the engine like it is when you're flying. When you're flying, there's no wear going on in there because the Sprag is locked up and there's so much pushback on the propeller that you're never disengaging the ratchet action of the Sprag. Where at idle, you're compressing and firing and the prop ain't moving much air, so it's flywheeling ahead of the engine a little bit, and then when the engine catches up on a firing stroke, you hear clickety click click, and it's just a random clicking. And the drag, 18 foot-pound drag clutch mod that Teal puts in them now helps absorb some of that clickety click, and so it's making it last really well. Between the L9 gear oil and this Sprag improvement, these things, it looks like the Sprags are going to go a lot further than, he originally recommended 250 hours on a Sprag change. It's a pretty easy job to do too, but I'm like the test flight test dummy, or whatever, that's trying to push the hours up to see how far the Sprags will go in this out. I suspect it's going to be at 500 hours.
Did you find an old Snowmobile?
Yes.
Or find an engine on eBay, buy it, and then rebuild the engine first?
Yeah.
And add the mods?
Yes and no. The Apex has been out of production since 2018, so we source all of ours through salvage guys. There's a real good guy, Travis, in Pennsylvania at Barnum Parts in central Pennsylvania. He sources the engine. He salvages Yamaha sleds as a side job, and he makes modified parts for sleds, but he's kind of got himself into a position where he buys a sled and he'll offer you the engine, the oil tank, the ECU, and the voltage regulator. It's stuff you need. He knows what you need for the airplane application. You'll need a wiring harness, and BD Turnkey is a great source for that. But if you use BD stuff, you're going to use his ECU, and you won't need the Yamaha ECU. But save that ECU, because guys like me that go the more frugal route need them. I actually got 2 or 3 spares I've accumulated from BD guys, cheap, but they're worth. Sled guys will pay you $400 or $500 for them, But I've helped so many people out. They help me out by giving me the parts. So if I ever lose the ECU, which I never have, I'll have them. And building a second airplane. I'm doing a test sale, so I always need extra electronics for them.
So what's it cost to set one of these up? So like buy the kit from, not him, but buy the used engine from him.
Okay, and there's also a guy named Jim Hensel in upstate New York that does the same thing, and they're both fantastic guys to work with. I've bought engines, 4-cylinder engines, as cheap as $600 with 16,000 miles on them and a lot of corrosion. And that's that engine on that airplane. You look how pretty it is now. That was a $600 corroded engine, and I paid $3,800 to have it zero timed, vapor honed, powder coating on it and stuff. So I had 38 plus 600. I had $4,400 in that engine the way it sits, plus the gearbox. The gearbox is that one, I believe, is $3,500, and I think this one might be $4,000 or $3,900. And you check Skytrax of Buckeye, Arizona. So it's Teal Jenkins at Skytrax. It's SKY capital TRAX, and Skytrax USA is your website you want to look for his gearbox on. So that airplane, almost 5 years ago, firewall forward, including the propeller, everything, even the cowling, I had $12,500 in my firewall forward. You could do it today, maybe 15, 16, some, COVID, everything's kind of driven everything up. 15 or 16, you got to do a lot of work yourself. Okay, your big expense is your motor mount, your gearbox, and your motor mount's probably more expensive than your engine. You're going to find from $600 to $3,000 for a good, depending on the mileage of the engine. Okay, and you can take, if you got a good running sled, how do you know it hasn't been underwater? You don't.
Nope.
But if somebody we might know here had one that had been underwater and didn't know until they tried to run it. And if you send it to Casey Hawk in Rice Lake, Wisconsin, he will tear it down and make it as pretty as that one on that airplane.
Yeah, actually, Dennis, it ran like a top in spite of being in the water.
In spite of being in the water.
But when they tore it apart, they found, and now it's totally rebuilt, brand new parts all the way.
He took a lump because he even needed a crankshaft.
I had an expert rebuild mine for $6,500. That's replacing everything but the
guys
pistons.
are still way below Continental.
Yes,
Oh,
no. That's with cams,
my firewall, his was 12.
rods, pistons.
I've got the BD system, which is $6,500 plus.
Yes. You pay a lot of money for
Total
ride system.
17 grand firewall forward on mine.
How much?
17 grand.
So
But
you
that's
would not recommend, though, buying an engine, not having it gone through. Those very
well, I would if you knew where it came from.
My original engine that I overheated due to my own stupidity was a 7,200 mile engine out of a sled I got from Travis Hipsman at Barnum Parts. I put that baby in there. I cleaned it up as best I could with Scotch-Brite. I actually used marble vitriol to shine it up. But it's a smart thing to have it vapor honed and torn down and gone through. And all these magnesium parts, everything you'll see green on my airplane when we go out there is magnesium. You want to stop it from corroding. So you want to do that. But I had $1,700 in my engine out of the sled, and that included throttle body. That's another thing I could get with the engine. Throttle body, oil tank, the regulator, rectifier, and the ECU. And he throws in the harness too, because some of the plugs on the harness you need. So $1,700 5 years ago. You might find it for $2,000 or $2,500 nowadays. If you have faith in it, you can do that. A lot of people do. But if you get some people have got one. Guys abuse sleds. Smart money is spend the extra $4 grand and get the freaking motor done by an expert.
Can you just buy the whole setup brand new? I mean, just ready to go?
No, not an Apex.
That's not the Apex. They're out of production, and Yamaha never sold the crate engines, but Arctic Cat did and does for now. You can buy this 3-cylinder turbo bowl version of this with the throttle body on it for $42,000 to $46,000.
$5 grand, I think. Everything ready
She's
to go.
staying off, Ed. She's staying off.
What's the weight like compared to a certificated engine of comparable horsepower?
Turbo. I'll start with my Apex. Everything in front of my firewall includes my column. Price-wise, I would include that. Everything that's hanging on my motor mount, not my cowling, weighs 182 pounds. Most people with an Apex install come in somewhere from what is that?
Mine's 175.
His is
I've got the exact same thing.
Dacus's was 175 too. So you could basically say it's 180 pounds, and that for 160.
So what's a 912?
Yeah,
They're right in there.
We're
Same.
within 10 pounds of a 912. I think people commonly say we're 10 to 12 pounds heavier than a 100 horse 912. Now, the turbocharged engine version of this, firewall forward is going to be 45 more pounds. So you take 180, it's going to be up 225. It's going to be 220. The gearbox is a little heavier than that gearbox.
Okay.
And till you get through the turbo manifold, the turbo is heavy. I'm installing a Sidewinder on a Badlands Traveler right now, and it's shocking how heavy the turbo is. It's heavy iron.
Has to be, 'cause it gets
yeah, it
hot.
has to. Yeah, the hot side of that turbo is heavy. Yeah, the cool side's aluminum, but the combined weight with the wastegate and everything, it's pretty heavy. But you get 200 plus horsepower out of it, so it's a little different animal. So I'm assuming that this 3-cylinder normally aspirated, this is only 140 horse max on the 3-cylinder normally aspirated, and it would be in this. Well, with a heavier gearbox, you're going to be a few pounds more than the Apex. But if you have an airplane that needs a smaller prop, you need to have this variable. There's 4 different ratios available for this one. There's one for that, and that's optimized for a big prop.
Now, how do you change the ratio? You got to.
You pull the front off the gearbox.
Okay, I mean, it's not like a clutch in there.
No, you change the. Remember, it's a compound gear. You got one size gear on your output shaft, and you got it driving a gear on the middle shaft, and then a different gear is driving this gear on that same shaft. So you change. I believe you change this big gear and half of the idle shaft gear or something. I'd never done it, but I know the gear ratios are available.
3 different ones.
Yeah, and you would order your gearbox for your application, so you wouldn't have to worry about changing the ratio. You'd buy the ratio of your application.
So that gives you like the equivalent of climb, cruise, prop.
Yeah, well, climb and cruise, you're
mean,
going to change with your pitch.
Yeah, but I mean that's basically what you're doing. You're changing what type of.
What kind of airplane it goes on.
Right.
Like the 4-to-1 and the 3.5-to-1 ratios in this gearbox would be geared more toward a big prop airplane like I fly. Okay, the 2 lower ratios are going to be geared more toward an RV or a Sonex. There's a guy put one, Bobby. His name's Bobby Lewis. I hope you don't mind me saying his name here, but he's putting one on a Sonex B, YXB actually. He's in North Carolina, and he's doing a heck of a job. So we're going to have the first test, but unfortunately Bobby's using the Apex, so he's got the deep reduction on an airplane that only has room for a little prop. So he's got to put, I think, a 3-blade prop on. He's had one specially built. I think he already got it. He's going to spend some money probably trying a few different props to optimize it. But if it had a Sidewinder or this one, he could have had a ratio that would match a 60-inch prop, and he might have gone away. He'd probably still need a 3-blade, because with that small diameter, you need more prop to absorb the horsepower. So, but yeah, on a little airframe like Sonex, you're probably going to be married to a 3 or 4 blade prop on any of these engines to absorb that kind of power. Questions?
There is another good source. Brian Bowen in California, Redding, California. He's built a kit fox with the stock Apex motor and recorded it online on YouTube. You could see the whole process. He had a problem with an engine. He went through all that, and he's been flying it several hundred hours, I think, now.
Yeah, he's like
and
that,
so
yeah.
if you, Brian Bowen at bowenaero.com.
Yeah, and it's spelled, his last name is Bowen, B-O-W-E-N.
And if you type in Kit Fox, it'll come up.
Yeah.
And just look at his videos, and it'll tell you everything you need to know. And he went with the Brian Doctor system also.
Yes, yeah, very nice. Project Kit Fox is the name of the YouTube series he has that covers his build. Project Kit Fox. It's a really good one. Brian has excellent quality. My videos that are up on HeeHaw Highlander or Denny Rowe on YouTube, I'm crude. I just don't, and I don't edit nothing. I just put up what I do. Brian's is way more polished, like Trent Palmer stuff, and he's a straight shooter.
And he analyzes everything.
Yeah, he analyzes. Yeah, some of us have the gift of overanalyzing.
His latest thing.
He's good.
His latest thing, he put a 3-blade E-prop on his motor, and he saw a great improvement.
Yes.
So that's the question. Is it variable pitch prop, the hydraulic, or
ground adjustable.
ground adjustable?
Because of the weight and the price.
Yeah.
Like he put an E-prop on it.
Yeah.
He put a ground adjustable E-prop, and he saw Much smoother and more power at lower lower RPM.
Yes, if I could afford an E-prop 3-blade like he has on his, I'd have bought it already. But I got to say,
I second that.
Yeah, in our props though from Ukraine, what I fly on there is an excellent prop for it, and that it pulls like a John Deere tractor. It's for STOL competition, I'm awful good, but apparently the E-prop is equally good by Brian's test standards. So, and yeah, I fly an NR because it works good and it's affordable.
His NR was real close, but he said he could tell there's a slight difference. It was a little better.
Yeah.
But the NR was awful good.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm running a 82-inch Cincinnati carbon 2-blade.
Yeah, that's another good prop. Yeah.
And I don't think I have the performance they have, but I'm real close.
You have so much, on a plane like a Kit Fox or a Highlander, these engines offer so much extra horsepower, over 100 horse 912. And no better in cruise stuff. When we're cruising these engines, we want them to last. You're going to cruise, airframes only want to go about 90 mile an hour, maybe 100. So you don't have to push these hard, so it'll last for you a bit. For takeoff and climb, you have excess power available. Solo, when I compete, my plane will climb 1,800 feet a minute easy. In fact, on a cool day and the right conditions, it'll probably climb 2,000 feet a minute sustained, you know, when I'm lightened up for a competition and that. Would you like to move out to the airplane and see an installation? Alright guys, so this is a 4-cylinder Apex, 1000 cc, 160 horse competition, probably 130 to 140 the way I fly it now. I run the NR SR 118 carbon fiber prop on it. Fantastic prop for STOL operation. How long is that prop? This is a 79-inch prop. Now this, I'll kind of demonstrate what's going on with the sprag here. Okay? When the first generation of this gearbox just had the sprag here with no drag clutch. So when you out here in the wind, this would be windmilling and spinning this way. Never could go this way. That's where the sprag's engaged. Okay. So Teal a couple years ago came up with a drag clutch modification, and like I say, it's roughly 18 foot-pounds if it's shimmed the way I find it. Yeah, it's a clutch. No, you set shims to set the amount of squeeze you're putting on a fiber. It looks like a clutch plate out of a dirt bike or a motorcycle. You know, it's a wet clutch plate. And so mine has hardly changed. And this gearbox has, before I left Pittsburgh, about 15 hours flight time ago, maybe a little less than that. It had the gearbox had 351.7 hours on, so I'm up with the 360, late 360s, I guess. I haven't touched it. I have not touched it. I just change the oil every 25 hours. O9 is all this gearbox has ever seen, and it's just humming away. My test samples are great. Yeah, I highly recommend that. If you have to buy an order, there's some of these out there on the market for sale that people, you know, home build turn up with half the people don't finish your airplane. If you find a Skytrax Apex gearbox and get a good deal on it, and it doesn't have the drag clutch, if you just turn the prop up to the right easily, you want to send it back to Teal. It's $300 or $400, maybe $500. You'll modify that baby and put all the latest and greatest. It's got better output shaft bearings too. You got roller bearings in them now, and it's just solid as a rock. And I always highly recommend everybody go with the latest stuff on it. And this has been frozen for 2 years now. I don't think it's going to change. They really got this thing worked out well. The Apex is different than the Nytro and the Sidewinder. It has an external oil pump on it. It has a shaft with a seal and it's chain driven. Very reliable water pump on it. There's just no failure. There was some failures in the UTV application of those engines. A lot of people put these in UTVs because they're awesome and they're powerful. And in the UTV market, very little in the sled market because that's what they engineered for whatever reason. They don't break as often in the sled market. And in aviation, the stock water pump shaft and impeller, the shaft would shear on them. I did a little video series on that on our Badlands build series. My son's putting videos out for. Teal sells an impeller and a water pump shaft for this Sidewinder application that is way more reliable. Nobody's ever broke one yet, so it looks like they got that solved. There's a lot of engineering went into it, and my video will kind of explain the difference. But the difference in those Nytro gearboxes is the water pumps behind the gearbox, and the back shell of the gearbox kind of becomes the impeller cover, and the water shaft coming out of it is part of the gearbox. The inlet for the water pump is part of the gearbox. So it's a little more involved putting it on, but it's basically the same thing. But you want to do, if you do a Nytro or a Sidewinder, you want to opt for the $180 improved water pump impeller for the teal offers. If that makes sense to you. There's no water pump issues with that on this. Again, fuel injection airbox is another thing you'll need if you do a normally aspirated application. Is that a stock airbox in there? I believe it is. I believe it is. The Apex stock airbox is too big for airplanes. It's a big bulky thing and stuff. So you can make your own out of a piece of 4-inch pipe. I prefer to use the seals, the flange on the inlet boots that Yamaha has. So I prefer everybody use this, and the velocity stacks just go down inside. So that roll your own, you know, one way or another. But
I built my own.
yeah, yes.
It's not as pretty as Dennis's, but it works.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's all that matters. You got a good working thing. You'll need a surge tank for your cooling system. I'm building my system a little different. If you join that Yamaha Aircraft Conversions group, you'll learn a lot on there about how everybody's plumbing. A lot of us document our builds and, hey, this worked, this didn't work, don't do this, don't do that, you know. And again, it's all opinion, so take everything for what it's worth. But it's one of the most helpful groups I've ever seen. There's a good bunch of guys on there. Any questions? Oh, you'll need fuel pumps for it too, being fuel injected. The Apex runs about 50 psi, 52 psi, and so you'll need Walbro fuel pumps, and you want two. You only ever run one at a time. And you want backup. Any questions?
Custom radiator every airplane?
No. A lot of guys use these. I think they're 914 Rotax rats. Steve Henry sells them at a lot of Just Aircraft. Some other companies have different ones available. This is the most common one. I'm actually collaborating with a guy right now to build a little bit bigger radiator, a bit thicker, that hopefully eliminate the need for an external oil cooler. In the sled, it doesn't have an external oil cooler. Yamaha has this really slick water oil cooling unit that goes on the side of the engine over here. If you guys want to come on this side. This is a Mokel oil. This replaces that slick cooler I told you about, the Yamaha. It comes on the sled. This diverts the oil down to the air to oil cooler. Okay, Yamaha stock thing bolts on the same way right here beside your oil filter, and this water line right here goes into it, and it comes out of it after it cools the oil. And I ran this for a first 120 hours or so without the external oil cooler when I started competing. In high angle attacks, high power settings, slow airspeed, and you know, flying the pattern slow for competition. I'd get up there, I'd squeeze. It was getting hot on me, so I did this, and it's great. It got me down where my water and oil all stay under 190. You know, my water never goes above 175, 180. You know, but even on a hot day. But we're hoping. We know from the UTV world, if your radiator is big enough, you got enough, the oil will follow the water and it'll stay cool. So we're testing. Testing's ongoing. We're hoping to get back to that because it's so dang nice to come right out of the water pump, cool your oil, and then this makes a nice half-inch line to go through the firewall to a heater. And it's all, since it ain't operated by your thermostat, you've always got hot water in that circuit, so you always got hot water available for your heater. And so it's a perfect circuit for doing that. On this application, I'm running my water through on the 1-inch line through my heater core and fan, and then back to the radiator. And the bad side about that is in the wintertime, if you don't have enough tape on your radiator, it takes a lot when it's really cold. You'll never get heat in there because your thermostat just stays shut. So, No, this my cowl goes up and this is kind of exposed, so I just put duct tape. I basically cover all but a couple rows of this and a shocking amount of this. Since this is covered, behind it's covered, and I wind up with only about 2 rows of this because I fly in like 20-degree weather, and I want heat in there. You need it, and so you got it. So what if you don't do the dumb thing I did and use the thermostat controlled water? If you use this circuit, you'll always have hot water. You don't ever have to tape anything. Your engine will always have hot water available. It's just the radiator won't always be cooling it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you're not time sharing. You're not pulse width modulating your heat. You know. Anyhow, starters built into the engines. If you buy a salvage engine, make sure you got a starter with it. They're gold. They're gold plated from Yamaha. You don't want to buy one from Yamaha. And I scrapped one like an idiot because it was on my rusty engine. This engine, I scrapped it and I had to find another one. And I found out they're very rebuildable. They hardly ever wear out. I could have tore it apart, sandblasted it, put it back together, and I'd have had a nice, pretty starter. These things start so quick, you never wear them out on these either because you just hit the key and it's running because of the fuel injection. It's like starting your car. You can almost leave off before it's running at all. It's always, when it doesn't start, it'll shock you. You're like, oh no, something's wrong. You know, it didn't start. No, you didn't hold the key quite long enough. You know? So that's another thing. You don't have to preheat it. It's a snowmobile engine. It fires right up. The oil's thin. You got synthetic oil in it. They fire right up. And another odd thing. I told you it'll shock you when it doesn't start on the first try. We wheeled this out to head down on this trip. It had been 21 degrees overnight, so it was cold soaked. It was about 28 by the time I was starting it up outside. I cranked it, left off, it didn't start. You know, that shocking thing. Yeah, unexpected. I cranked it longer and I left off because it always starts. It didn't start. And I'm like, yeah, this never happened before. Third time I held it till it fired, you know? And I'm like, why? And I just done a spark plug change and I hadn't started it since the spark plug change. I did an oil change the day before. So, I hadn't started that either. And it kind of weirded me out. I'm like, did I do something wrong when I changed my spark plugs in that gas? No, it just was cold. It was just cold, and I was being, you know, your reflexes, you don't want to grind your starter, you want to let off quick. And that's the first time in almost 5 years of flying this thing that it took me a third time to crank it. So if it don't start on the first try, it'll freak you out because they start that well.
So you're burning 93s?
I usually use MoGas 90 octane. That's ethanol-free 90 to 92. Anything in there is good. You can burn ethanol gas in this. It's a snowmobile. Everybody puts pump gas in them. It's just you don't want to. If you're sitting around in the wintertime, you're not flying. You don't want ethanol in there. And if I get in a pinch, I'll grab 93 or 89. I put 87 in it. This engine with the stock Yamaha stuff will run on 87 fine, but it's not a good habit. You want ethanol-free 90, you know, and you can burn. Before I established really good MoGas sources, I found airports that had MoGas in the Midwest. I used to get, when I went on long trips, I'd put some 100 in it. It's not good for the engine. You always put, the lead is not good for these tight tolerance rings and valves especially. It build up on them and stuff, but you always run Decalin, and it's a lead scavenging stuff. And I run double the dosage on them. And the engines I've run, overheated engine on that trip, when I overheated it got me home, no problem, wash bit. There's white residue on the top of the pistons from the lead. It's shocking how much it goes up. Now I've got a good place to I got 500 mile range on this thing, plus reserve. So I hardly ever have to run 100 low lead anymore. But when I'm traveling, I take Decalin in case I need to. But it's a good, when you build a plane with a Yamaha, build some range into it, and you can get by without it. You know? And if you do local flying, it's never a problem.
If you go with Brian's system, he has an O2 sensor that gives you a little bit more horsepower because it's fine-tuning the motor all the time. But lead will ruin that O2 sensor, so you do not want to run 100.
Somebody,
but you can wire that up with a switch. You can turn that off if you have low lead in it.
Yes.
And that'll save that. When you're running low lead,
No, it'll still build up in there.
Yeah, but it's
Still
better
build up
for it
on
than
it.
if it's on. It's even worse for it.
Right,
Yeah,
right, it is.
right,
That's true.
right.
And the
And
motor
there's-
will run without the O2 sensor, but you'll lose a little bit on your top end.
Somebody in Europe has an O2 sensor too that's more robust against the lead problem, but they're very expensive. I believe.
Brian's selling them now.
Okay, so Bow and Arrow will have those available too.
No, it's all Dawkins.
Oh, Brian Dacus has the better O2 sensor. I think it's pretty expensive.
Yeah,
it's very
expensive,
pricey.
but it's
Yeah, a lot better.
Have you tried running any of the aviation unleaded fuels yet?
I'd run any Swift. I had Swift fuel on it one time on a trip. But yeah. Any unleaded, especially prefer ethanol free, but any unleaded fuel run in it. And 89 and up was your safe. If you're a risk taker like me, you put 87 and out in. But it was just 10 gallons in a tank that already had 15 gallons or whatever. But I think the manual.
With the 93 is not enough people burn it, so it sits too long at a gas station.
Right.
So you got to get a good source.
Yeah, you're right. And at one time I got a local marathon gas, and it had a shit ton of water in it. Just a luck of the draw. And the only time I ever drew some water out of this was I was in a hurry. I was running late. I didn't have time to stop at Maxwell Airport and fill my barrels up, and I stopped at a marathon. I never get gas out, and I pumped 15 gallon of 93 in it. And then, my God, the next time I stopped my pump, I took 3 sample tubes of water out of it. Man, it freaked me out. I'll never buy marathon gas again.
Engine mounts.
It's probably
Specific to the airplane?
Yeah. This one's made by Wild West Aircraft. That's Steve Henry's outfit, and it's a Apex, Highlander, or Super STOL compatible.
So
he also makes the motor mount for the 3-cylinder form also. Now other companies make them for Zeniths. Rand's S21 has one, has a Sidewinder on it. That's another thing you have to source. And being part of that Yamaha conversion group on Facebook will help you source that stuff. And these are very much roll your own. Nobody's doing it. Well, Steve's the closest thing to a firewall forward operation, and he does offer at Wild West Aircraft. He offers the motor mounts. I think you get your engine bolted to the motor mount and that, and you pay a premium for it. But if you're not a do-it-yourselfer, it's a good way to go. It's a real good way to go.
So this engine, you engineered for a snowmobile, which means a wide range of RPM.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what's the impact of running it at
I think
consistent RPMs?
it's probably easier on it. I would assume that my knowledge and my lifetime, I think it's easier on it. And I've set this thing to 7,600 RPM and sat there for 5 hours going to Nebraska, no problem at all. It's just never an issue. I honestly think it's better because
The red line's 12, isn't it? In the snowmobile.
Yeah, in the snowmobile, the rev limiter in my ECU is I believe it's 11.2. It's 11.2. They run these same crank and rods in the R1 sport bike, and I think they go to 15,000.
Right.
I think their rev limiters maybe above 15,000.
Japanese engineered it more robust than the horsepower it's putting out.
Yes, and they get 200 when they rev them that high on these engines. But in the sled, you can't. If you use a stock electronics, most sane people leave it at 11.2. I don't think this engine's ever been above 10.1. When I set up for competition, I'm right there at 99, 100 to 10,000. I don't think it's ever been above.
I know it's not a problem, but mine went to 10.7.
Oh no, it's not. It's not.
I had
So
not
now
much
the
pitch.
snowmobile, Yamaha's not building snowmobile.
Right.
And it looks like Cat's going away.
Yes.
So what, and I know they're not doing the Apex anymore, but
So the
parts long-term
Sidewinder,
sourcing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, what's the future?
the Sidewinder and the Nitro are still available as trade-ins from Arctic Cat, as far as I know. They will be. It's just like this. So you're going to be in but there's tens of thousands of all of them. And it's one of the reasons I kind of hold on to this. I'm like, okay, we're already there, and I know there's 50,000 of them in North America sitting in salvage shops or whatever. You know what I mean?
Buy a couple
And
There's over a
yeah,
million of them.
and you're going to find these for less than $2,000 probably. I would buy either a salvage engine or buy a snowmobile and run it some, and like he did, and he thought it was still good, but it had been underwater.
But I didn't find that out until I sent it away to be rebuilt.
Yes.
And I paid a premium, and still total far on board, I've got 17 grand in it. Where are you going to get any other engine for that?
Right.
And that's,
Yeah,
that's building
he's
from
using
scratch. Everything in that motor is new but the pistons.
And he's using the expensive BD turnkey, really nice ECU and engine monitor.
And it's got the O2 sensor.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got a 5-inch monitor that tells you everything you want to know.
And if he got away with that, like this engine was $600 with 16,000 miles on it for corrosion. I put 3,800 more in, so I have 4,400 in this motor. And I had a point to make here, and I just lost it. Damn it.
Well, I've got a
longevity of parts.
Yeah, oh yeah, the Yamaha's parts are all there, and I assume that if the Yamaha pistons and that go away, you'll always be able to get aftermarket good ones from aftermarket companies, either Wasco or whoever. There's a lot of different people.
I had some advice about that because I went through some of this stuff. I was told Yamaha has a system. If you contact your local dealership, that they merge with all other dealerships for parts and can locate the part for you. Because what I ran into with my build is my builder said, hey, you need a crank. I said, yeah, okay, well, get one. I said, well, you can't get one. They're not going to be producing more for 6 months. This is in COVID. And they're going to come out in Japan in 6 months. Well, he located a serviceable good one. But otherwise, you can go on for giggles. So on Partzilla, a brand new engine, and you can do that, but they will not sell you the main bolts. I guess because they're not going to let you have an engine, right?
That's another.
And it came to 11 grand.
Right.
But that's Partzilla. Partzilla rate ship.
Yeah. A lot of guys who are in the when we build these engines, Casey Hawk always recommends us in the aviation. Use ARP head bolts that bolt the engine. They're harder. The stock Yamaha bolts are supposed to be a one-time bolt. You torque them and you stretch them a little bit at the final torque. Okay, and you shouldn't reuse them. If you replace them with the hard ARP stuff, they're lifetime bolts.
And my builder did that.
It's like $150 for the bolt set, and you're buying once, so you're done. You can rebuild that engine 10 times. Now, him needing a crankshaft is a real anomaly. Right. These crankshafts in these engines are incredibly robust. They'll take 1,000 horsepower, and people claim 800 horsepower.
My builder was meticulous. He found just a little bit of grazing on one of the loads.
Because it's been underwater.
So he said, I'm not putting this in. Right. But it ran like a top in my yard. He called me up and said, there's no way this motor was running. I said, yeah. I said, I ran it around my yard. You know, running in the dirt with Snowmobile. I said, I can't tell you what's wrong with it, because he said something happened. Well, when he went to the dealer, excessive parts, they said, oh, that thing went swimming. It happens all the time. They come like that.
Yeah, so if guys running one of those.
So whoever had it and they sold it to the used equipment company, was getting rid of it because they knew it went in the lake.
Yeah. So, again, 16,000 mile engine, needed nothing but rings and the valve job. You know, the valve seats, valve seals, that's a typical rebuild thing. Okay, and the bearings were okay, but we put new bearings in it and stuff. But I still have the crank, the cams, the rods, the pistons, all were perfectly in factory spec and that. And being that the way these engines are built, they're not journals holding your crankshaft in, holding journals. It's a clamshell, full girdle engine. It makes them super rigid. So that's why the guys love these for drag racing and hill climbing in the sled world, because you can just boost them till they're bursting.
My builder turbos them over 600.
Yes.
But they're not going to last.
And another thing I've heard is somewhere above 800 horsepower in this racing application, they'll actually expand the cylinders, inflate the cylinders on around before the crankshafts will give out. That is with special rods, special pistons, everything else. But the stock crankshaft will take that. And apparently one of the race shops, when it got to that point, they said, oh, let's make a billet block. And they went further with horsepower. You hear 800, you hear 1,000. Some people will tell you that's full crap. It's 800, it's not 1,000, whatever. But the point is, somebody somewhere went so far that the stock block couldn't take the pressure, and they put a billet block in it. It's the same crank, So if you got oil pressure, you change the oil and keep it clean. Your crank should be a lifetime.
explain you. And you couldn't tell that anything that had ever happened to it. But,
They really are the closest thing to a modern one.
the nitty gritty on this is static thrust, I think. I've done a static thrust test with my stock motor. I'm pulling 591. Steve Henry, we all know him, right? And he's got the turbo Nytro.
No, that's Sidewinder.
Oh, he's got a Sidewinder turbo built especially by the racing people. Don't tell how much they got in it, but the ultimate, they've gone ultimate. He told me 1,400 pounds of thrust.
His plane weighs like 860 or
His plane weighs the same as mine, 840 pounds.
Yeah, it's heavier than this one, but you got a bigger one.
Yeah, that's
They're close to that. Yeah, hypersports. If you're in race lake, you will spit distance from them. And Casey Hawk also builds these for us
and
guys.
so
in
the
the
static
race
thrust
lake.
tells you the story.
Yeah.
He's turning a 96 5-bladed prop.
If it would pick up oil for the oil pump, he could climb vertical easily. Because Steve weighs 130 pounds soaking wet. And that's why he wins a lot. That thing is awesome.
His takeoff is what wins.
Yeah, awesome. Any questions? Yeah, my best measure in competition takeoff, I won Appalachian Mountain STOL last year in this plane, and I had 157 feet combined takeoff and landing distance. So sub 80-foot takeoff and landing. We had 10 or 12 knots that day. So the more wind you can do better, and the less wind you do less. And that system. 805 pounds is the way it says you drive. At the time I weighed 200, I weighed 195 now. So actually I weighed 190 now. I'm on my way down. I'm trying to get to 185 by my first Virginia Beach competition. And I'm building a new Highlander I'm trying to take weight out of too. This used to weigh 752 with the small tires and no shocks on either of all three wheels. And the small tires, but now it weighs 805. And I compete at 815 because I put a 10-pound weight on the hill. And I fly with that all the time, except when I travel and I load it up. I take it off just to give me extra padding on my I actually compete heavier because I did that tail weight for flare and keep this out of the dirt.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, gentlemen. I'm always, if you see me around, don't be shy to ask questions.
If nobody else has any questions, I've had an RX-1 Vectors, Nytro, never had a Sidewinder. Now I have a 2011 Apex with 12,000 miles, runs like a Swiss watch. So I'm a big fan of the engine. But I own a Cessna, which is even worse. But I've got an opportunity to buy an RV6 kit, and I don't know.
I would say no.
You would say
I
no.
would say no. Teal runs the Sidewinder on an RV9, and it's excellent performance. For that fast of an airframe, I think in the RV world, my opinion, which you know is free and it's worth that. I would stick with a 9 if I was putting a Yamaha in it. It has a higher aspect ratio, wing, and better glide ratio, and everything. And your 6 is also aerobatic. And this system, the way this is not really aerobatic. You know, I don't know,
You're
negative
not gonna fly it
G's,
that way.
you might run the oil pump dry or something. You could fly it that way too, but my comfort level wouldn't be there. And if I did the 9, I'd do the Sidewinder because the power output. Teal's numbers on that Sidewinder were breathtaking on an RV9. He absolutely had the highest performance RV9 ever built. Now, he did have an accident in it where one of his parts held the fuel rail on and came loose. He had injector leak fuel on the exhaust, and he had an in-flight fire. He had an accident.
Specifically about that.
Yes, he landed on a highway and stuffed the fire out, but there was enough damage done.
He told me that he had that fuel rail off.
Yeah.
And he did not put Loctite on. Go back in. So he recommended Loctite.
Yeah.
Well, I immediately took mine off and Loctite it.
Right, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Because he thinks that's why.
At the time he went out of action, he was up around 300 hours on that Sidewinder. Yeah, the Nytro is the non-turbo one like in there, and the Sidewinder is the turbo. And he had the most airtime anybody had on a Sidewinder real world application. And he'll soon be back in the air with it, pumping up the time. And man, if you followed his number on the apps and see the performance, at 10,000 feet, he had an outrageous climb on that plane. It was like over 2,000 feet a minute. I went to Wayne, Nebraska for an STOL stuff a couple of years ago, and he was there, and I flew beside him. And man, when he threw the calls to it, you know, RV versus this.
This isn't a 9?
Huh?
This is a 9.
RV9. Yeah, he cruised 200 knots all the time, and the economy cruise on 180, 170. You know, it's just awesome. And he was always out playing, pushing it and stuff, and it sounded good too. It had a scream to it like a P-51, honestly. When it went by, it was just like, damn, you know. And so that's your RV type engine. But again, lower stall speed than a 9. I like the 9. Yeah, and that's as far as I would go myself. We're putting one in the Badlands. I like them in planes that you can, you know, if you're familiar with the Badlands, them dang things land 27 mile an hour full stall, you know, and some got with slats and fences on them claiming 23 mile an hour. But I like safety. And they cruise. They cruise like 120. You know.
What about insurance? You guys self-insurance, or is that just not?
Yep. When I first built this, I had 0 time in type, 0 time on airframe, and insurance was prohibitive at like 6,000 a year. Now we're not doing it. So I bought liability for like $600 a year, or something, $650 a year. And now I've got almost 600 hours on each year. The estimate on the haul insurance, 100,000 haul on top of your billion liability or whatever it is, it came down. This year it was 1,700 and change. I bought it. I finally bought it. But you got to put time in time. 100,000 haul. Yeah. So, and this is I built this fairly economically, so that way I could build it again for that. You know, I buy used kits or secondhand kits that people give up on or don't even start. This was a kit that's set for 7 years. Nobody started, so I saved myself almost 20 grand on it, and so I built it cheap. I could rebuild it for that, but we compete. I don't expect my insurance company would cover me for that. It says right, you know, it ain't gonna cover you for that. So we're a little bit out of the way. You gotta have that's the reason. But now, like I said, I got a lot of time that they don't have it. And a little secret, their questionnaire says, is the engine commonly used in solar manufacturer? Well, Just Aircraft commonly puts those engines in planes. There's probably over 100 planes, so yes. Now, when the push comes to shove, you don't know what they're going to do when they drill down and say, hey, you bought up with what? You know, so don't say. Yeah. Enough said.
What's this motor up with?
A Yamaha Apex Snowmobile.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were moving forward, would you recommend the Apexes anymore? You kind of moving past the Apex?
I'm kind of an Apex guy on these type of planes. Yeah, and they have the biggest fleet time on them right now, and they're awful good. The only one I know of that broke in flight through a rod was I think it was one of Steve's former Highlanders that had routinely used nitrous on it. I think he sold it to a guy in California who routinely used nitrous shot on it, and he did throw a rod for it and have an off-field land. He saved the airplane, but it was a close one. But I don't know of any in-flight failures of them that weren't electronic related. There were some aftermarket electronics we haven't talked about here that have had connection issues and let people down. And but the engine, as far as when Yamaha's part of them, I've never heard of one breaking. So I get home to Pittsburgh safely, and but yeah, they're awful good engines.
I got my
But you want to do them right.
I got my kids. I'm going that way, and the factory told me don't do it. And well, why? They never came up with a good reason to me. They said people have had problems. Well, what problems? Well, they had some wiring problems, but and that comes from this.
This is
The
for Highlander?
Snowmobile has a bunch.
Highlander?
This is the factory people. They won't tell you it's bad. They just tell you don't do it. The problem comes in. The Snowmobile has dummy switches. I call them. They're not really. What are they called? Limp mode. In other words, the motor goes to idle if it gets too hot. The motor goes to idle tried to circumvent that themselves and ran into some problems. And that's one reason I went to Brian Dawkins and his system, because he's already done it, and he's a motor man. He builds.
Right. That's a ground up.
He builds Vortex V8s for a living, and so he built. And I plug and played. I had no problem whatsoever. Now I don't have a whole lot of time on my motor,
I've
but
never heard a single person with a problem with a Zactus engine.
Well, you know, by the time you get done, you redo the wiring harness, you go out and buy all the sensors, you go out and buy the gauges and everything else. I did the math on it. You're going to be at least halfway and maybe even close to 2/3 of the way in price to what it would cost you for the.
and you're having to do it all yourself.
And the turnkey system is just the way you can tune the engine.
Yeah,
exactly. You hook up your computer to your laptop computer to the computer on the airplane. You download what the engine is doing. You send that to Brian. He downloads it. He looks at it.
That's in the price.
Yeah,
He's not charging
he doesn't charge you for that. And if there's something that needs to be tuned on it, he can do that remotely. He can hook up to your computer remotely and go in and tune the computer on the airplane. So
I've done that initial tune on mine, and he has told me put a few more hours on it and then do another tune and send it to him, and he'll check it because he wants to be sure.
That is the really bulletproof way to go. And
there's
you
really
get,
no comparison.
and if you spring for the engine monitor add-on, it is awesome. Again, it has prop RPM, available peak horsepower, percent horsepower you're using. You're flying at 60. You know you're at 60% power.
It's got your fuel ratio.
In this temperature and atmospheric condition, you can get 145 horsepower today. And maybe tomorrow in a cool air, you get 162 horsepower. That's. I'm a bling guy. And I'm also a cheap guy, so I'm doing. And I know, yeah. So I'm here with my stock Yamaha stuff. Just call me a bottom dweller or whatever. It's awesome, but Brian's is more awesome. So I fully endorse what he's doing, and it's probably the simpler way forward to let everybody spend a few extra dollars and do it right and have that cool factor, and you really know what you're doing to your engine. And he also has pulse width modulated, figured fuel consumption. He knows the injector profile, and he knows what his bus work knows what it's doing. You don't need fuel sensors. Like on my setup, I would need a red sensor going one way, red box one way, and I need a red box on the return line, and doing the math and how good's that really doing. It's just a flow sensor. He has the profile, and he knows how hard he's firing his injector. He has live. You're burning 6 gallon an hour. You're burning 4.8 gallon an hour. That stuff's nice, and no extra crap to do it.
It's right there on the screen all the time.
It's all electronically figured.
If you get in the caution range on anything, you get an amber LED, and then if it gets worse, it turns red. So you just glance and see no amber, no red. You know you're in a good zone.
What was Brian's last name?
DACUS.
turnkey engines.
BD Turnkey.
BD for Brian Dacus. BD Turnkey engines. Yeah, he's in Reno, Nevada.
Oh, right near me.
And, good stuff. Really good. That's the kind of stuff we need to keep these going, and because we got the engines. Right? There's tens of thousands of engines and parts out there, but you need a good support on a harness and stuff for aircraft.
And then it's talk about the electrical. There's no alternator. You got to hook up.
Right. Yeah, the engine is like a snowmobile. It's got a built-in stator.
35
it's like 420 watts, I think. And 420 watts, so you got plenty of power for radios and electronics and that. And nothing crazy, but it's plenty. And with LED lights nowadays, you got plenty of power. Super simple. It's an oil bath stator. It's pretty reliable. Oh, did you ever have to replace a stator?
No,
I've heard from the snowmobile guys spending money on the Yamaha stator. I'd buy one from a salvage engine or whatever, but a salvage yard. But the Yamaha ones are pretty expensive. A lot of people buy Chinese replacement. I've heard they're problematic. And I actually had one of my used engines had an aftermarket stator on it. My engine builder said, just put a new. I got one right here out of an engine. Put that in, throw that away. But you want Yamaha OEM parts in these things.
Unfortunately, that's the problem with the market, is that there's so many options that people who don't necessarily know or aren't qualified dig in, and before you know it, negative publicity maybe wasn't warranted.
That's why Just Aircraft doesn't want it.
Yeah, exactly. Road tax is a known commodity, and well tax is a commodity. And I'm not ever telling
to do this, I'll be glad to tell you my pitfalls. But if you're looking at engines and you're not sure, hey, that's great.
Yeah, that's a very personal decision. It's a comfort level decision. We don't want to ever. This is not the greatest things in sliced bread. It's damn good though.
So I already asked him the other day, since he's standing here, I'll ask him again about the noise stuff. When I hear RPM, I asked that yesterday. When I hear high RPM, I'm thinking screaming.
Yeah.
It is. Mine does.
So how loud is it talking for you in comparison?
If I don't wear earmuffs, I'll go deaf.
So you do, but you're used to it.
That muffler is a special racing muffler from Burns out of California. And do you know what your DB is?
Yeah, I do, but I can't remember.
But it lowered it considerably.
Yes, yeah, this is a dual chamber muffler. Don't even think about putting a muffler on off a sport bike. You can see through the muffler, you probably don't want to.
I can test it as I tried it.
Yeah. I had a sewer-filled header straight through can on it. It's like half this long. Fit the same mount. My boys' in-laws live 5 miles from where I was test flying it. They told me put a damn muffler on that thing. So I finally found these guys. It's an expensive muffler. It's a repackable muffler. You're supposed to repack it about every 50 hours. I've got 150 on it, so this is as loud as she gets. She's burned out, and it ain't bad. I wear David Clark passive sets, and it's totally fine flying. But and people will tell you it's fairly quiet for a high performance airplane. When it's repacked, it's very quiet. But if you put a KTM 1290 Adventure motorcycle muffler on, it's going to weigh almost 3 times what this weighs, but quiet. Quiet like a Rotax 912. It's a good Rotax, like a push cat. How'd you do? Here, just give us the output. Thank you. All right, he's going to hook you up?
I'm gonna end up making it. I bought some parts with this
stuff. Awesome. Okay, good. Awesome job, man. You bet. Give yourself clearance when you fold the wings. Make them long enough to figure out where you want them. You want them at least parallel. I took mine a little bit past parallel. Did the old bird back, kind of look so. Yeah. Good luck with it. You're welcome. What was I saying?
I just got a Suzuki GSX-R, I think. I haven't put it on yet.
Can you see through it?
No.
Okay. So it should be good.
Yeah, it's 8 pounds, so I'm going to try it.
Oh yeah, you got a mag.
It's a titanium.
Oh, nice.
The one that's on there now is, what's that?
Let us know when they.
I will. I'm going to get it home. I just started flying it last fall before I headed down south, so I'm going to get that back and put it on there. I'm hoping it quiets it down.
My buddy Andy Kirby's putting one on a Wagabon, and he found one on eBay for like $100. It's gonna be your muffler, and you can't see through it. Can't wait to test it. I bought what I thought was the exact muffler for $100 on eBay because I said, oh man, I know that's gonna be a goodie, and I want to get it quiet down. I got mine and looked through it. Yeah, it wasn't the same muffler. It looks the same. It ain't the same. Yeah, and I even asked the seller. On eBay, if you look through the end, can you see through it? No. Yes, you can.
Can you see through it with your eyes open?
Yeah.
Is it still connected to the motorcycle?
Yeah. So anyhow, you're looking for make sure you use a 1000cc sport bike one that has a single muffler on it. There's some GSXRs that have a dual exhaust on it, and that's kind of why I got this shaped muffler on. I found, the Schoenfeld header one I started with, the loud one was that one. I bought a Gixxer dual set. Not thinking they split. They're putting 500 cc's through this can, and they're putting 500 through the other can. Okay, I put it on there. Freaking awesome noise suppression. Oh, I flew over them one time during the test flight. Me and my buddy came in from the east, and we overflew them. We were talking to them on the radio. They thought we were out 5 miles. They didn't hear us coming. We were at altitude. We pulled the power back, and we flew over, turned, base and final. Whoa, they're right there. We never heard you. We went right up, and they never knew we were up there. But that muffler was a little restricted. My EGTs went up. The spark plugs were burning white. It was a little too restrictive, and I also lost some horsepower. So I started with a real loud, straight through, good performance. Went to that round Gixxer one. It was awesomely quiet, but it gave up like 700 RPMs at takeoff, and it was definitely running me hot on the EGT. So I had the computer, whatever restriction caused the mixture to go lean, and I ran it for quite a while. Then I went to this is the dual chamber, Oh, it's a fiberglass insulation. Like